Good evening, everybody, and welcome back. Spartan Nation Radio. It's now time for the good, the bad, and the ugly with Michigan State Sports with legendary State of Michigan high school football and basketball coach, the great coach, Chuck Grenier. Now, in his retired life, the elk, the deer, the squirrels, the rabbits, the bears, they all fear him. When he enters the wood, they just sacrificially give the biggest one away and say, here, you can have him, leave the rest of us alone. But I have been fishing with this guy and literally had monster smallmouth and walleye jump in the boat saying, here, we'll just give ourselves sacrificially to you if you'll leave our families in the water. The great one, Coach Kinnear. How are you, Coach?
Well, I'm good. It does save time that way. So.
I cannot wait to get up and go fishing. Do you have an idea? I know we're waiting, but as soon as the ban is lifted, is the boat going in the water?
Pretty close to that time. I think we'll probably be in for a few more weeks, though, from what I'm hearing from our governor. So, just biding time right now.
Awesome, Coach. I want to talk about the draft and I want to talk about recruiting, but I want to first start with asking you this. The NFL, whether you love it or not, is the most popular sport in America. It's the most popular form of entertainment. And you have to put it in entertainment because it outratings everything. I mean, so other things that are movies and everything else that are entertainment, nothing compares to the NFL. It is the big dog. And with this shutdown and the COVID-19 safety precautions, since the NCAA tournament, the conference tournaments were canceled, this is the first real sporting event. People, whether they love football or not, I think this draft is almost therapeutic to America. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think so too. As you can see with the protests that are going on, not to get too political on your program, of course, but as the protests are going around the country, and we've been in this now, this lockdown, this seclusion, whatever you like to call it, for the last 6 weeks, people are getting cabin fever. They're getting antsy. Their way of life has gone. And I think it will be really refreshing and to have pro football and right now pro baseball come back. These outlets for people are essential. And I think pro football, pro basketball, college sports are just ways of people letting off steam, and I think they've got to come back, and I sure hope in the near future things iron or level out here and it gets started up again.
Coach, we at Spartan Nation have talked for years, and you can verify this, about the money in college athletics being unsustainable. Unsustainable. Many programs were running right at breaking even, and football is the one that drives the ship. It drives all the other sports because it's the most popular. It makes the money. We now saw Boise State, a perennial power, that had to furlough their entire football staff. Entire staff furloughed. I mentioned to you, but I've talked to several athletic directors. I'm not Michigan State because I cover Michigan State. People always assume when I say that I was talking to Bill Beekman. I did not. That they said football has to come back on time with people in the stands, and they will survive it. If they do not, I've been told as many as 80% of college athletic programs will probably go bankrupt because they would have to borrow so much vast amounts of money to stay within Title IX restrictions. And I had one athletic director say to me, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Christian, non-Christian, atheist, gay, straight. He goes, I don't care what color you are or anything else. If you in any way root for college football, you've got to hope and pray college football comes back and the fans come back. Because if not, we are in deep. And he used a word I will not use on the radio. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah. The college football fans will come back. I think, in my opinion anyway. I know pro football makes huge revenue, but I just love college football, and the fans will come back to college football. However, will it come back? And I just don't know at this time. I think I think there's a lot of things that have to happen for college football to come back. And if it doesn't, you're exactly right. College football funds college athletics. That's where the money is. That's where all the field hockey teams, swim teams, all those teams are funded by college football. And if it does not come back, those programs will suffer. And the whole sports program in college athletics will suffer. We've already seen that the Olympics has been changed over, and for whatever people like the Olympics anymore or not. But that's been changed to another year, and the way it came out of Japan is they just kind of were like ambivalent towards it. So college football's got to come back, and if it doesn't, we'll be looking at just pretty close to, I think, of a year without college athletics.
Coach, this athletic director told me if it's not back and the fans aren't back in the stands, and he goes, that's the other thing. Even if it's cleared, will fans come back? He said, but if they don't, this will be a nuclear bomb in the midst of college athletics. I thought it was just fascinating. And then you've got fans. I talked with a longtime season ticket holder who, even through John L., even through Muddy Waters, even through the end of the D'Antonio era, never wavered. Said, listen, I'm going to go every year no matter how bad it is because it's just my life. Who said to me on Sunday, I'm not renewing my tickets. I don't want to be. I don't want to be in a stadium with a ton of people. I'm just not renewing them. He goes, I'm not paying seat licenses for the privilege of owning seats, let alone buying tickets. I'm just not doing it. It's just going to be fascinating to watch. Coach, I want to turn attention to recruiting. I talked to Harlan Barnett. I talked to Mike Tressel and Ron Burton yesterday about Mel Tucker's SEC approach to recruiting, that they're going to recruit everybody, everywhere, all the time. If you're good enough to play Michigan State, they're going to find you and they're going to get you a scholarship offer. He is making his coaches spend as much time recruiting as coaching. They are recruiting every single day. It is just their approach. He's accumulating a lot of really solid commitments. I'd love your analysis of Mel Tucker's recruiting and his style. He's certainly taken the Nick Saban, Kirby Smart SEC approach, and I love it.
Well, yeah, you never can tell. You never can tell what would influence a young man to come to your program. So to get out there and to have your name spread out to all 50 states that is in Canada, all 50 states in Canada, that you're interested in them, that people are talking about your program, that's just essential. You have to become a face out there that is recognizable to those young men. I really like what's happening right now with him getting back into the Detroit area, working hard to get those relationships mended, and that there's freshness coming out of the Detroit area with what the prospects, the recruits are seeing at Michigan State. So I think he's doing a whale of a job, and I don't know why in the past we really didn't go nationwide regions, and I didn't understand that fact if you just didn't think it would happen. But when D'Antonio was there, he made his bones being the great coach that he was there at Michigan State, like finding these gems, these 3-star prospects and 2-star prospects that would later blossom and develop into pro caliber players. And I hope that's what Coach Tucker is doing at this time. I think it is. So the recruiting is going really well, and I really appreciate it going out and putting feelers everywhere.
Coach, before I let you go, I've got to talk to you about one more thing. We're going to get into the NFL draft next week a lot more, but I wanted to ask you about I was talking to some NFL scouts for the articles that went up on draft day. I'm sure you saw them. And I was talking to them about players, and they mentioned Cody White. This is a number 1 wide receiver who the first half of the year the staff completely forgot was on their team. They had a terrible offensive system last year where the guy was on the left side statically, meaning all the time, of a right-handed quarterback. And halfway through the year, they move him to the right side, and all of a sudden he blows up for 500 and some yards. And they thought Cody White was going to be probably an undrafted free agent because of his stats, but that he was a steal in this draft because of the bad system. Now think about this for a minute. The scout went on and said, Brian Lewerke, great sophomore year where you could tell he did a lot on his own, but no improvement, and the scheme got worse his junior year and horrible his senior year. They talked about underthrown, but why are you having guys run routes your quarterback can't throw? They used Cody White, for example. How many times did he have separation, but yet he had to come back for the ball because it was underthrown? Why are they making him run routes the quarterback can't throw? It was shocking to me to talk to NFL people, but at the end of the day, it was what we saw. Was it even worse in East Lansing the last few years of the D'Antonio era than maybe we thought, or was it as bad as we thought?
I think it was bad. I mean, it was really bad. I had the opportunity. I think everybody had the opportunity this year, sitting around doing nothing. That ESPN was played the Colorado-Washington game in which Colorado upset Washington this year. So I had an opportunity to tape that game and watch it and watch what to expect from the Colorado offense now that its head coach and its offensive coordinator are now at Michigan State. So they were doing a lot of things that on the program here that I talked about, the way that Jim Harbaugh came into Michigan, and because they didn't exactly have the talent there at that time, the way they set their offensive lineup, the way that they used max blocking, protecting, and I see that coming with Colorado, and I wondered at that time why we didn't make those adjustments at Michigan State, because we just kept doing the definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again, but in not finding any positive results. But that's what was happening at Michigan State, and we griped about this. I griped about this for years with Brian Lewerke, that he just did not technically work as a quarterback. His feet were bad. His arm was. It was just a series of things. So to answer your question, was it really bad at Michigan State coaching-wise? And I have to say the answer is yes. I mean, you look at the quarterbacks over the course of the years that D'Antonio was there, and the quarterbacks really did not function well under the D'Antonio area. I know you had some good quarterbacks, Cousins and Cook, but they kind of did things on their own, and you just didn't see good quarterback play, technically wise, out of that group. So
I agree.
Yeah, I think it was real bad at the end.
Coach, we're up against a break, 45 seconds, but I got to go on and talk about one other thing. The offensive that this one general manager said to me. He said, Darrell Stewart's a great kid, but do you know halfway through the year, he had 12 drops, and you're still running your entire offense through him. Then you had Cody White, who didn't. And he goes, Darrell Stewart went off against a subpar Western Michigan, and it was like the coaches said, okay, here's our star. And they didn't realize it was Western Michigan. He gave me another one. Mm-hmm. He said, you guys were going against Ohio State. And he said, Cody White, Ohio State showed you who they respected in your offense because they didn't put they put their number one corner, an NFL corner, on Cody White.
Mm-hmm.
The NFL corner goes down. He said, and after he went down, not one time did Michigan State target Cody White against a backup corner. He goes, if you noticed during the year, there was a time, and I think it was Ohio State, but if I'm wrong, I'm not lying, where Josiah Scott went down. Yeah, it was Ohio State. And Michigan State put their backup corner in, Dom Long. And what did Ohio State do the next two plays? Bombs, both times. They attacked Dom Long until Dom Long proved that he goes, it was just coaching 101. And he said,
that's exactly right.
And he said to me, I know coaches who saw the Ohio State game and said, You could fire D'Antonio and his staff just on that game. Just fascinating. All right, Coach. Appreciate you. Next week we'll get all into the NFL draft. He's the great and one and only legendary Coach Chuck Grenier. Only legendary Coach Chuck Grenier. Only legendary.